Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Finding Financial Fitness Show. I'm your host, Nino Gonzalez, joined today by my co-host, Chen, and a very special guest, Jessica Tavison. How you doing? Jessica, welcome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for having me today. I'm doing so good, and I hope your morning's going well.
Yeah, am I
Welcome,
saying your last name
Jessica.
right? Tavison? Is that
Yeah,
how you say
Tabs.
it? Cool.
It's always good
We,
to see a new face, not just the two of us, right, Nino?
I know. Although I like seeing you pay, it's nice to have different perspectives and different people. But Jessica, a big reason why I wanted to have you on is because me and Pay obviously have met you in person. We've had the luxury to be able to spend actually a few times, although we live in different parts of the country, but we've had the luxury to be able to see each other multiple times and talk to each other. And before I kind of knew you on the business level, I kind of got to know you. Obviously, we got connected through business, but I got to know you on a personal level, learn your story, and I thought that was just really interesting. And then how you transitioned into your business, starting your business, and what you're currently doing. So I wanted to kind of run through everything. But first, can you give the listeners, just for people who don't know you, tell us about yourself? Like what was your career before you got into investing and starting your business? Just what are some highlights about you?
Well, first off, I'm 28 years old. I had been a massage therapist for almost about 10 years. I always had a passion for massage therapy since I was young. Along with reading the book Rich Dad Poor Dad at a young age, I saw everything kind of as the cash flow game. So looking at, oh, should I go to college or should I go to massage school? And that's when I decided that was a no-brainer. Also, I had passion for that as well. So looking at a, $14,000 debt versus $100,000 debt, especially when I didn't know what I wanted to go to college for, multiply that or whatever. That's how I decided that I wanted to be a massage therapist and use that as a launching pad for me to work and travel. And then also started at Savannah, which is a wellness resort out in Arizona, and made enough money at that point to start saving and like getting back from traveling and realizing that I was spending $2,200 a month in rent, realizing that's going nowhere, not saving any money there. So I decided to, sacrifice different comforts and cut my monthly expenses down to $500 and, just really trying to navigate liabilities versus necessities and just figuring all of that out, and realized I was only like a few pivotal moves away from escaping that rat race and really trying to bring everybody that I could with me, as far as like my loved ones, my sister, my cousin, my best friend. And how that worked for me was also reading the book Who Not How, which, as a massage therapist and then starting this business at the same time, I didn't work in an office, so I couldn't just handle everything on my own. Otherwise, I would be the one that's holding things up. So I had to learn how to delegate, and it has been a learning process for the past 7 months. But, here I am, and I'm grateful for it.
I think it's amazing. And we had a chance to meet in person. And so I kind of know a little bit of your travel story and amazing places that you've been. But I almost feel like you skipped almost 10 years of discovery that other people typically has to go through. And you are at 28 years old now, and your trajectory is far surpassing, typical people at your age already. So kudos to you. But it's really amazing how, whoever shared that book with us, we all each have to go back and individually thank them. And your story, like, just real quick, like, I know you've been to all over the place, like, where have you been that kind of still sticks in your mind, your favorite travel place, if you could go back to a little bit?
Well, Guam, I lived out in Guam for, almost 2 years. And so, of course, that has a special place in my heart that feels like home. I got scuba certified out there, and it's just, the ocean is beautiful. I found, a deep love for the water and the island and island life. And it was just it was an experience like no other. And made so many friends from all around the world out there. So I'm just incredibly grateful for that experience.
That's awesome. So you traveled, which I think it's important to do that, because something that I've shared openly on this podcast is the fact that if I would have given advice to somebody like even a few months ago, I would have said, go straight from high school. If you're going to go to college, start working, make money, save it, invest it, and then start living your life. But something that I really admired about you was the fact that you were able to do a little bit of both and enjoy your life when you were young. And obviously you're still young, but you got a lot of that out early on. And now you're still young enough that you can pivot, but you've taken this life experience and now you're bringing it into your own business, which I think is more valuable than doing it the other way around, where you kind of start a business and then try to build the life experience on the back end. So you kind of mentioned the story. You came back, started saving, trying to save money, started learning about investing. So what was then the gap? What bridged you from, okay, you had an idea, you knew you had to invest, to then starting a business on connecting people to private money lending deals, which we'll talk about here shortly? What was the gap? What was the school you went to, the book you read, the method you learned that kind of bridged that gap for you?
Well, I joined the Sub 2 community. I joined the TARDIS community, which is where I met you guys. Okay, so yeah, I had joined the TARDIS community. I from there realized that it was like a little bit more slow roll education than I was looking for, and I was really wanting to get into the real estate industry. And my mom has always been in the real estate industry, so I really always kind of had an ear for it and a knack for it in a way. So I also was looking into the Sub 2 community, which is a real estate community with Pace Morby. He's actually out here in Arizona. There's about 15,000 people in that community, and it's such a large community, and we can do so much business in that community that there's just so many different angles that you can take it, and there's so many different jobs that are within that same realm, that to be able to offer opportunity or to each kind of individual business within the community. So it's tailored specifically towards wholesaling. And for me, I realized that I didn't have the time to sit on phone calls for hours at a time unless I was taking days off work, which then cuts into my budget and in investing in different things and in investing in myself. So I decided that, well, just looking at the whole process of a real estate transaction and realizing like, well, everybody gets paid over here in funding. So even that wholesaler, that it'll be months until that deal closes, and sometimes things fall through and then that deal is shut down. And so all of that time is wasted and spent. So I realized that this is probably the area that I wanted to be in on the back end. And so that's how I ended up doing private money lending, or starting a business of connecting people to private money lenders and being kind of the in-between. We do all of the follow-up, that way the lender doesn't have to chase after any kind of money or communication. We navigate all the communication and set up monthly payments, especially for when you're lending to somebody that's brand new to you and brand new to me, to help build those relationships.
Yeah, I remember you bringing to our like investment community just a deal. You had posted something in our just community chat about somebody needing funding and the return over, I believe it was originally 5 months. And Pei and I are when we see people that come in, we have two thoughts that come to our mind. One, what are they selling? Let me just be honest. Or B, who is this person? And both those thoughts kind of came in. I thought this is interesting. So I remember reaching out to you. And then I also remember reaching out to Pei and saying, hey, did you see what this person posted? Like Pei's like, I was going to reach out to them as well. And that, lo and behold, started a huge journey for the three of us and for business partners, Jessica, for your family. Everything's just been so great in terms of just overall growth. But I remember that one of the biggest things just early on was you were willing to put yourself out there. And something that Pei and I are known for doing is learning by doing and finding out by trial and error. And when we did our first deal together, it was the three of us that were on that deal. It was figuring it out, trial and error. And from there, you took and we took it, and Pei and I formed our own company as a result of it. You formed your own company as a result of this little seed that came in from this. And so I wanted to kind of now touch into the private money lending world and what that entails. I think there's either people who don't know what private money lending is because as it sounds, you're literally lending money to a private individual. You're not lending it to a business, right? But that can entail many things. In prior episodes, Pei and I have talked about lending money to family members. I made the comment about my cousin Vinny, if I wanted to buy his car or give him money. But this is a little bit more formalized in the sense that when we're lending money, we're doing it in a real estate transaction backed by an actual home, an asset, a collateral. So Jessica, can you talk a little bit about the PML structures that you are involved in terms of is it tied into a home? Is it first position? Is it second position? Can you kind of elaborate on what that is as well?
Yeah, I just want to also jump in here before Jessica starts and give you a chance to think that answer to how to answer that question. It's a big one, but it's just, when we're talking about, when we kind of introduce the whole velocity banking and private money lending, we use the example of personal lending. Still the same P, but it's personal lending. And in that sense, you're lending to individuals. There's a lot of trust. Not that private money lending doesn't involve trust, but for personal lending, there may or may not be collateral. And this is where private money lending in the real estate arena is different, because there is now hard asset back on these things. So I'm going to let Jessica then now jump in and explain what she does.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, private money lending is basically just a lender like you or me or, family member, your loved one. My mom could be a private money lender. Basically, the benefits to the borrower, personally, we do fix and flip projects mostly. There's plenty of different types of lending opportunities, like longer term lending opportunities, but we mostly do a short term, close to a maximum of 6 months for fix and flip projects. We focus on gap funding, which is basically where a hard money lender will fund that 80%, and then we come in to close that 20% and begin the initial rehab to the property. So the hard money lender will be taking the first position and the private money lender will be taking the second position. There are times that you can even be taking the third position. It really just depends on the opportunity. But you're depending on the property, and we even have a few, locations out in the Midwest where asset is 110,000. So then you can, including the rehab. And so then you can take the first position on that property as well. Of course. So what's the difference between like first position, second position? I'm breaking that down because 6 months ago, I didn't know anything.
Yeah, you and me both.
Right. So in the first position, of course, is the person that has more control over foreclosure on that asset if and when necessary. Of course, everybody wants to avoid that. It's too much of a headache. However, if the borrower chooses to not communicate what's going on, that's when you would want to move forward with something like that. What other kind of questions did you have on?
So your company, I'm sure, because you guys are trying to set yourself apart. I'm sure that you mentioned the community that you're part of, and there's that it seems like a pretty large community, and everybody's trying to find a niche of what they're trying to offer. So I'm sure you're not the only company out there that are doing the connector role. How do you kind of set yourself apart? Like what's your vision when you embark on this journey? What's your vision? Like, hey, I see what they're doing, but I don't like what they do here, or I like how did you kind of formulate that? I would like to know how you thought through that process, if you did. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, we do things, and I'm more so just realizing after a phone call I recently had, we do things much differently than other private money lending opportunities. Typically, when you're doing a flat rate of return, that only comes at the balloon. Breaking that down, a flat rate of return of a percent of interest. So 15%, whether it's 6 months, or 15%, whether it's, 3 months, that's a flat rate. And sorry, I lost my train of thought.
So that's the typical balloon type payment.
Yeah. So the balloon will come at the end of after the property sells. So there's no monthly payments that happen. That's a typical deal with a private money lending for a flat rate. I decided that, well, one, to entice more lenders and opportunity to help them build their cash flow and understanding different strategies that other investors have, that I needed to create a way for there to be monthly cash flow, along with the importance of building relationships in bringing back like monthly payments and showing, oh, I'm loyal and I'm, able to make my monthly payments and slowly build that relationship when you're doing a first few deals with somebody. Then in the future, have room to negotiate what that payment would look like, or if you would be willing to just take a balloon at the end, especially with the typical style of funding of fix and flip projects as they're growing their business and the lending party's business and interest, and along with us in the middle. So just turning everything into a win-win-win. And that's the best way that I found to build those relationships.
So do
And
you find yourself, I'm sorry, do you find
Okay.
yourself having to educate the borrower? Like, you're acting obviously as in between. So we're coming to you and we have set criteria of what we're looking for. But for the borrower's perspective, they must ask you, why do you have to educate on them on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a part of our pitch, is that imagine that you're the hard money lender on this, or the private money lender on this. Would you rather experience monthly payments, especially when you're lending to somebody that you don't know? So being able to, I would say there's a bit of education that happens on the borrower side and on the lender's side, because we work with a lot of new inexperienced private money lenders as well. And so just learning each individual lending style and each individual borrower style, and kind of like matchmaking in that way.
And I will say, just from our experience, something that I've noticed, because me personally and Pay as well, we've worked with different connectors, and I would say the more typical thing from a connector is solely, I'm going to connect you, get my fee, and get out. And at that point, it's up to the lender and the borrower to communicate hey, I need an extension because hurricane hit through and I need another month. What I really value about you and your company, which is Saguaro Investing, which we can talk about the name a little bit, but what I value about that is the communication and the willingness to see the project through till the end. And that's where, I mean, we're talking about a niche within a niche, right? So real estate, we've talked about briefly on this show, is an asset class that people can use to invest and make more money to grow their income. But within that, there are different ways to make money. There's short-term rentals, such as Airbnb. There's long-term rentals. There's private money lending. There's hard money lending. And so private money lending is a little bit of a niche in that real estate. And so being able to be good, or in your case, be great at one niche, I think is very important, because it allows you to bring and educate both sides, the borrower and the lender side, of what to expect, which does take a lot more time and a lot more effort. And you mentioned the who, not how component. I think for you, it's so, I think from what I've gathered from you, it's so important to kind of outsource that and make sure that rather than just trying to speed through it, let's make it more efficient and let's hire the right people for the right positions. And so I think that that's huge. And as a lender, and most people coming into listening to this are likely going to be lenders or potential lenders, I think that they will appreciate the fact of you're looking out for both sides and both parties, which gets to my next question of the criteria, because I can imagine being part of this large community. If people know, hey, Jessica's company, they're connectors, they have a pool of lenders, I can imagine you get some pretty unique people coming in and saying, hey, I need X amount of money for this project. And they tell you, I need $100,000, I need $10,000. And I promise you, it's going to be a $2 million home on the back end. So tell me a little bit about what your filter is, your criteria for selection when somebody comes to you and says, I need a lender for X amount.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have an underwriter that I have on my team as well. And I will tell you what, it turns away more deals that we bring in than we accept or get approved. I mean, there's a due diligence process that happens as far as first the deal gets approved, making sure that the money can be made in the back end. After that, we'll do a Zoom interview and really get to know the borrower, start getting to know that communication style before funding even starts happening or before I present it to any of my lenders. And around that time is also when I decide, I'm following my gut, and if I don't actually like the way that certain conversations will go, I'll just say that, we won't be moving forward at this time. And even sometimes when it's come down to the wire, I have unfortunately had to, make a hard decision at the last minute and be like, actually, I don't think we're going to be able to move forward with this property today. But at the end of the day, the private money lenders' money is my top priority, and at the end of the day, on both sides, it should be the top priority for the investor and for me to be able to say that I want to make sure that we are getting that money back.
And you mentioned due diligence, and could you explain on the due diligence part? Because of course, Pei and I are aware, because I'm asking the questions that I should have asked when I did my first deal, but now that I actually know to ask. So on the due diligence, when they're telling you, let's just use a simple example, they're telling you they're buying a house for $100,000. They're going to put $50,000 of rehab, which is what they're asking for, 50,000, and they're going to sell it, or they're hoping to sell it for $300,000. So a typical term or abbreviation we hear often in this space is ARV, after repair value. So can you tell us a little bit about when they say, hey, I'm going to sell the home for $300,000? What's your underwriter, or what are you looking for to ensure that the numbers they're giving you are not just some crazy numbers when all the homes in the area are selling for less than 100,000?
Right. I think that that's probably one of the first things, though. I mean, the comps in the area are one of the number one things that we look at. If they're even across the street or not in the same, comps are, very important in this process. And I think that when a borrower brings those comps to you, and they're from, down the street and in a different neighborhood, all of those are just not going to work. And that's also why I have an underwriter for that, because he's experienced. He's my who for that, of like, if he doesn't trust in it or the comps don't line up, then I'm going to listen to him and say that this isn't going to move forward.
Yeah. And I think that that's so important, because it gives it's nice to have a third party, because I can bring you my car and tell you, hey, I'm going to sell you my car. My car is worth $500,000, but it's when in reality, it's not. You try to go, it might be worth that to me because I love my car. But if you then try to go sell that somewhere else, someone's going to laugh at you. So I think that is so valuable to have on your team, your own internal due diligence, because it helps to solidify confidence in the lender at this point. So you mentioned you get the comps, underwriting checks the box, maybe 1 out of every 5 is actually approved. Then you bring it to your lenders. I know that you guys have a mailing list, which I love, just to get those emails every week and see, oh, look, there's a new home that I could potentially fund. Someone comes to you and says, hey, I'm interested. What's the next step on what's the conversation like between you, your company, and the lender?
Yeah, well, it depends on whether it's a new lender or not. So we also want to figure out, well, what's your lending style? What kind of fees do you need to be included? We change the JV agreement specific to each lender. Typically, if it is your first time lending with us in general, we have a basic format of what we've been doing so far, and just getting to know that individual and, turnaround time, and let them know, like, if there's going to be an extension, what does that look like? We at first were, flying the plane and building it at the same time. So at first we were just being a part of that conversation and navigating that conversation between the borrower and the lender, and making sure that communication is happening, that you guys can decide on what like at the time of, what does this extension look like? Now we're doing a little bit more, making sure everybody knows what that extension looks like ahead of time and agreeing upon that. So that's important. And
No, I think that's a good conversation that has to be had between the lender and the borrower regardless. But I think you being there helps to, or the company being there helps to facilitate that, because if you have, let's say, a new lender, right, and a new borrower on both sides, they won't know what questions to ask each other. And through the experience that you've had, and that the company's had over these last few months, you can kind of throw those softballs and say, hey, you might want to ask this, or hey, make sure you're discussing this in the deal. And that way it helps to merge people together, which I think is so, it's so important, because it is, like Pei mentioned, although it is a little bit more formalized in the sense that typically it's business to business lending. Me and my company will lend to the flipper, and they typically will have an LLC. There is still a large element of trust, because at the end of the day, you are relying on that borrower, because that borrower is the one who's putting their business on that contract that they're saying they're going to pay you back. So there is an element of trust. And I think having those conversations is very important. Yes, it's important to know that, hey, this is what the property's worth. Here's what it could be worth. Here's what comps are around it. But at the end of the day, we are dealing with individual people, right, that are doing this. And with that, I remember we had funded a few deals, Pei and I, in the early part of this year, last year as well. But for me, it really hit home when we saw some of the homes that we funded out in Dallas, and we took a trip out and we got to physically touch where our money was. And I think that that's another layer of investments that Pei and I really haven't touched on the show yet, but we talk about just making your money make money. And there's multiple avenues, there's multiple ways to go about doing that. But it's rare to find a product that you can invest in that you can also feel and touch and know that, like I'm actually part of this, that you're funding the borrower and their creative brains to paint the home this color, break down this wall to put another living room. You're funding that project, and you're giving them that opportunity. So it feels like you're on that same team with them. And so it adds an added element of, hey, I'm actually, my money's being put to good work. I'm not just stuffing it in a Vanguard fund and buying a bunch of
Black
stocks
box investing, you know.
black box investing. That's correct. That's the term that you always use. So I think that's a huge thing to be able to see. And so I think just private money lending offers a unique opportunity in that.
And for me personally, what the value of having a connector like Jessica's team brings is we are all busy, right? And when we started on this journey, I thought I was going to be able to keep track of everything on my own. And I thought, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know what you don't know until you get started, right? And now I see the value of having a connector team like Jessica's, where they don't just connect you and then say, oh, good luck, I'll see you on the next deal, where they're actually there that you can reach out to and remember that I was supposed to get a monthly payment because I already forgot. Right. So that for me has brought a tremendous value. And then also just that communication. And sometimes it's good to have a third party in the middle, right? To say like, hey, the lenders are asking for this, versus me reaching out directly to the borrower and say, hey, where's my picture of your kitchen fix up, right? So that part is just tremendous value. So what do you agree. What like for Jessica, right? What do you envision your company to go to, like the next level, since you started up and now you built some foundational layers, and now you're probably looking forward, right? Because we're all entrepreneurs that are looking for time and location dependent business to run, right? Hence we're in the I want to invest my money to make money area or space. But for Jessica, I'm sure I want to know what you're trying to do. Next steps.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, and thank you for that vote of confidence as well. I really appreciate that. I had seen some connectors and other businesses kind of just like take their fee and leave that transaction altogether. And that just didn't sit right with me, because if anything were to happen, that's still my name that's a part of that transaction. So I found a way to just continue to be a part of that. And as far as future growth, I think that just 10xing what we're doing already. And then along with, like you were saying, Nino, being able to be in the middle of that relationship and being able to see, oh, like I helped fund this project, it wasn't necessarily my money that was put into that project, but, it's nice to be a part of something that you can physically touch and see and watch, grow in the market, and being able to get together with the private money lending side and the fix and flip side, and building both relationships at the same time, being brand new to real estate personally, being able to see myself grow in either direction. Definitely moving into a space of lending, of course, thanks to you guys, and being able to see your guys' approach and being a part of the Chartist community about learning how to flip, each line of credit and growing from there, but also being able to learn from the fix and flippers at the same time, and grow into flippers for ourselves, and then also having those relationships already built and knowing how we want to structure for our lenders in the future as well.
So I wanted to pivot because I'm curious, something that obviously I value you as a business partner, as someone that I can work with, as someone that connects us to deals. But something that I also very much appreciate about you is you have a vision of life that is, I consider to be very joyful. That I don't think you're the type of person to get caught up in making money just for the sake of making money. I think you do it with the sense of purpose. And I think that that's something that we strive to discuss on our show a lot, is making money with the purpose of doing something to enhance your life. So this is still money related and business related, but I'm more curious about how you view the value of money. What is wealth to you? What is having money to you? What's it all for?
You and I both know that financial freedom is, relatively easy to achieve if your cost of living is, lower, right? So for me, cutting back my initial expenses and realizing like I don't need a lot of money to live. So financial freedom and that stress there doesn't really have to be there if I don't live outside of my means. Or how can I approach it in a different way? So wealth to me is having taking advantage of my time and being able to work with my family and work with my friends is so important to me. And a part of what I require is pool team meetings almost every day. Like we work together all day, pretty much 9 to 5, and then we got to hit the conference room. All about living every day to its fullest. And for me, the water is it. And I've always admired the digital nomad life, and so that's kind of what I'm pivoting into right now. I just bought an RV, and I'm going to be working off my laptop and all across the states, and being able to just meet up with different friends and families and lenders and investors throughout that process. I'm really looking forward to, and knowing that for wealth is time and presence and the ability to be present and grow on a day-to-day basis, being able to provide opportunities to my sisters, and my sister's going to be joining me on that journey as well, but knowing I don't need a lot to even provide that.
And I think
that's so fantastic.
Go ahead, Faye.
Because most people are driven, right, like by the things in their life, but from what I hear from you, you're driven from the relationships, like you're saying, right, the time that you can't put a price on that, right? And the true meaning of wealth at your young age, to see that, I think that's very powerful and incredible. And the fact that you're able to bring your close family and friends along early on already on that journey, I admire that, because I was not able to accomplish that. You know what I mean? So there's an energy about you, and the way that and I just kind of noticed just from the first time meeting you, right? You just have a very calming presence. And even in a world that could be very stressful, right? Being a connector on deals and money transactions.
I'm dealing with annoying lenders.
Right? Who pepper you with questions and where's my money? Yeah, but like it's just it's a unique gift, right? So I just wanted to kind of say that I've met and talked with a lot of people, Nino. So Nino, very rare do we find an individual that has your presence. So
thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that, and I feel like it's definitely become a practice for me. It's not something that I would necessarily say I was born with, but going through different experiences in my life and realizing that even when I feel like everything is falling apart around me, and then I just reached that higher peak, right? Like that was just a valley, and it was just all part of the process and a part of the journey. And there's a word called pronoia, which is the opposite of paranoia. And it's just belief that the universe everything's conspiring in your favor. whether it's a breakup or whether it's you get fired from a job. Like, I just choose to believe that everything is conspiring in my favor, whether, it's a stress today or a breakup tomorrow. Like, that is for my highest good, and that's for my business highest good, that's for my friends and family highest good. And just to choose to pivot from there is just my approach.
Oh no, yeah. I'd
Not
never heard that
easy
word
all the
Yes,
before.
time.
that is a good one.
That's a good word.
Learn something today.
Yeah, for sure. And so last thing, Jessica, I wanted to ask, because you come from a similar background as me in the health world, right? You and I have talked about the importance of just taking care of yourselves. Obviously, as a massage therapist, I could tell that you really do care about taking care of the people that you worked with, their health. And so coming from that, kind of just wanted to finish off by getting your take on, obviously, Pay and I've talked multiple times how we link health and wealth, but being from your background and obviously living that experience as well, how do you feel health and wealth are linked, coming from the background of a massage therapist? Do you feel it's more wealth can unlock more time that you could spend on your health? Do you feel like it's a journey that no matter how much money you're making, always take care of your health? I'm just curious, how do you connect those two?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously my health journey is much different from, everyone else. And I don't have any real major health issues, and I'm blessed in that way, and not others are. So my perspective is going to be from that angle. So personally, I don't believe that, you need a lot of money to take care of yourself, right? It's all about eating good. I'm, all about Ayurvedic science, and massage comes from Ayurveda as well. It's a Eastern medicine, and it's about healing and rejuvenating our body on a cellular level. Comes from nutrition, comes from, self-care, comes from doing the things that bring you joy and love to help heal your body, right? I get in the pool every day because it brings me joy. It not only just mentally, but like lymphatically, swimming is so good for you. But I mean, there's so many different ways to look at it. But at the end of the day, we don't need a lot of money to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, no, and I think that's so important because of the fact that, like you mentioned, you don't need a lot of money to take care of yourselves. Going on a walk is free, no matter where you're at, right? If you have some body of water that you can jump into, I think that that's so important. And I like something that I've a lot been recently learning about. I used to be very pro Western, anti-Eastern medicine because I didn't know much about it. But as I've kind of advanced in my career as a dietitian, I started shifting more and more to this side. And then me and you have had conversations about Ayurvedic medicine and learning about it. And then obviously I came back from Japan and seeing different ways, different modalities. I think by addressing that early on, the sooner the better. Of course, if you don't have any comorbidities, even better. But then that can propel you to go out and make more money because you have this energy, you have this sense of well-being, you just feel better, and then that puts you on a higher up status for yourself where you feel more confident, and slowly but surely the money will follow. And I think that's something that I've learned from you as well, is like the money, it's not about always chasing the money, it's about letting the money naturally come to you. And I think that that's so important. So again, I wanted just to thank you for being on, mainly because I love your perspective on it, one, but also private money lending. We both, Pay and I, have gotten questions from friends, investors who know that we're in that world, but wanted to know more of what that world entails. And so we talked about the difference between hard money lending, private money lending, a little bit about what the connector does, and also why it's so important to have a valuable connector, because that's your first line of defense. And that's the person that's essentially going to bat for you and will look out for you as well. So that's why we, as investors, as our company, we value going to you because we know that you have our best interests in mind. So important to have a really good connector. We talked about how your due diligence process, the kind of inner workings of the company. So just to finalize things, if people wanted to reach out, if they wanted to talk to you or get to know a little bit more about your company, about your deals that you have to offer, where would they want to go? Where should they go? And we'll drop this in the show notes as well for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, being a new business, I think I probably should already have a website up and running, but it's still a work in progress. But we can drop the sawaro.investing@gmail.com email anywhere. We could reach out. You could reach anybody on the team there. And we're always happy to get on the phone and schedule Zoom calls. And even if you don't want to invest today, tomorrow, a month, just starting to get to know you and getting all of your answers, getting all your questions answered, and just help learn and grow your wealth and say no to 10% a year.
Okay, what do
And
you
also
yeah, go ahead.
for I mean, we also obviously reach a certain set of audience who are actually the ones who like to roll up their sleeves and swing a hammer and get down into actually doing the work of the fix and flip. So is that the same contact information if they're looking for funding? Is it the same way to reach you guys for deals that
They
they're
wanted to
looking for
borrow.
funding? Yeah.
Yeah, actually we do have a new email for that. And it's called deals.sawaro@gmail.com. Yeah.
We'll be sure to include that in the show
Yep.
notes so that both sides can reach out to you. And, we are so excited to see you grow. And, it's an incredible opportunity to kind of be part of your growth and then be a partner on this journey together. So very grateful for you.
And the gratitude is mutual. I feel so grateful to have met you guys, 6-7 months ago almost now. And it's been such a journey since then, from an early morning call for closing my first deal on the way to work, and just a little less running around in that way now. But, and thanks to you guys, and I really appreciate it. And to all my team, Mariah, Marissa, Hope, and Jerome. I met Jerome through Facebook, and to have such a wonderful business partner that I hadn't even known before, just a few months ago, and have closed, 30 deals with him. So it's just such a wonderful experience, and I'm so grateful to each and every one of you.
Tell Jerome to get ready to be on our show.
Yeah, he's on the way.
I love it. No, Jessica, thank you. Pei, thank you again for joining on. Everybody, thanks for listening. We hope you got some valuable insights into Jessica the person, but also what private money lending is. Again, I very highly recommend, if this is a space you're interested in getting into, it definitely helps if you have the cash, or if you have friends that you can partner with to get into these deals. The opportunities are there, and like Jessica said, always feel free to reach out, because it's better to have the connection and not need it at the moment than not have it and then you need it at a certain time, right? So it's better just have that conversation early on. But thank you both for joining. Thank you everybody for listening. We will talk to and hear from you all soon. Take care.
Thank you.